This ad break is powered by the Moose Lodge 1473. Listen, just a few weeks ago, members of the Moose attended a special fundraiser presented by The Herd, focused on raising awareness and much-needed funds for the congenital heart disease research, a cause that is gravely underfunded. These children battle every single day, and while there is no cure and surgery isn't always a fix, The Herd and our support can make sure that they're never fighting alone. A huge thank you to Salina Moose Lodge 1473 and its members for their unwavering support and commitment to making a difference. And again, a big thank you to The Herd for their work in the CHD community. If you want to be a part of something big, something different, something exceptional, join the Moose today. Hello, and welcome to the Two Dads Podcast. I'm your host, OG Pickle, here with Slick Willie. What's up, my guy?
How are we, buddy?
I'm doing well. Actually, a pretty uneventful weekend for me, but a lot going on your side of the pond, I guess you could say, the lake, so to speak.
Other side of the lake.
That's right. How was, let's catch up before we get to, we got a guest here today, so I'm very excited about that, but let's catch up on us, and then we'll get to him. The show's all about us, and yada, yada, yada. So tell me about your weekend. How was it?
You yada yada over the best part.
Well, it remains to be seen, so to speak.
I had a really good weekend. We had plans previously to go to Columbus to watch the Blue Jackets play the Detroit Red Wings at Ohio Stadium. So that was the docket for Saturday.
How was that?
It was good, but my wife surprised me for my birthday with Theo Vaughn tickets Friday night.
Wow.
So what we thought was a Saturday in Columbus turned into a Friday afternoon driving to Toledo to watch Theo Vaughn at the Huntington Center up in Toledo.
Did you get him to come on the podcast?
We didn't get him to come on the podcast, but we did possibly get the opener.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is new news to me. I'm hearing this live as this transmits through your radio wave, Spotify, Apple Music shout out, or YouTube. Explain that. You talked to him personally? What happened there?
So when my buddy that I played college baseball with at UNOH, Philip Donovan, shout out Petey.
Okay.
He messaged me and let me know that the opener was his high school catcher in baseball. And I was like, you got to help me get this guy on the pod.
This guy went full catcher, and now he's a comedian?
Yeah, that's where most catchers end up at. I mean,
I was a catcher.
Macho Man was a catcher.
Yeah, the amount of guys
That's a comedian.
Yeah.
So I messaged Petey, and I said, I'm like, hey, you need to get this guy on the podcast. How well do you know him? He's like, I know him real well. So he shot a message to Lee. Lee followed the podcast.
Shout out to Lee.
Got in the DMs a little bit. Said next time he's in Ohio, he's going to try to pop through here.
I saw him follow the podcast. Now this is all making sense. So I'm behind this. So Bill deserted me this weekend. Let's be honest. He goes to these amazing Jackets are finally playing well.
Yeah.
Playing at the shoe. Love to see that. He goes to Theo Vaughn like a rock star. Meets and talks to. Gets this guy in a podcast. Meanwhile, you guys might notice if you're watching on YouTube or any of the clips right now, we had to upgrade our cameras. So I got stuck at home upgrading cameras and setting things up. Basically, our cameras were a mess. We had these. I don't want to crush the company because it's a little early in our podcast career to do that, but they weren't good. Okay. First of all, they said they film in 1080. They don't. They internally film at 720. So you might have noticed that the quality wasn't quite where we want it to be. But at the same time, I'm allowed to build on the fly, and I'm okay with it. As long as we get the product out, it sort of was like a checkbox for me, but it just became, we had so much corrupted footage. You would watch the podcast, go back now, go to 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 episodes out now. If you go watch them on YouTube, which I highly recommend, it gives you another perspective of the garage and where we're at right now, if you're those listening. Sometimes they would corrupt, and just the camera would decide not to record. So then we'd be left with basically just sitting there going, what do we do now? And it got to a point of contention where I just said, screw it, I'm done. So you might notice if you're watching on YouTube, we've upgraded the cameras. We've got multiple different angles. Everything looks really cool now. I'm excited because now we can have guests and we can add different camera angles at 1080p. So you'll see a quality bump here in episode 4 that I'm really excited about. But yeah, it was a shout out to our editor, Josh, who came down and he set everything up for us while you were gone.
Yeah, thanks, Josh and Mitch, for working while I was out. So I had a fun weekend away. We went and did that. Had a good night out, had some drinks with the wife, and then we headed to Columbus on Saturday morning to watch the Jackets take on the Red Wings. So I met a bunch of buddies there at the Point Tavern, had some beers there.
You called me a lot when you're drunk.
I tend to do that.
You're a very loving guy. That's the side of Bill I didn't know yet. Great partner, everything I say. When he was particularly lovey, and I loved it.
Yeah, when I drink, I enjoy FaceTiming my close friends. Hey, how are you? I hit him with that line.
Well, now I know you like
time.
me. I mean, that's an important part of this progression of this business, not only the food truck, but the podcast. It's important that we like each other, and Bill likes me enough to call me very, very drunk many, many times at many different hours. But that's really fun.
Yeah, so if you've got a FaceTime from me at any point, just know that's because I love you, not because I dislike you.
So let's get over to some of the other things that's on the docket. We have some truck updates. You're the operations guy. We talked about the commissary last week. What's the plan now moving with the truck? We like to give updates from week to week for those who listen to episode. Give me an operations overview. What are we looking at? What's on our docket? When do we start? Give us the whole rundown.
So this week is kind of where the stress has been sitting in for both of us a little bit. I could feel the tension from Mitch when he was getting the camera set up and everything last weekend. And then we were getting tax stuff done this week, which that was another stressful thing to get it bookend from last year. And then we got to start up the truck. So our first event is going to be next week.
Good God.
Next Saturday, there is a color run. So if you're going to be in the area, we're going to be out at the Maria Stein area for a color run. So we got to get the equipment up and running.
I hope people show. I'll be honest with you. This is a great place to kind of, we share everything from drunk FaceTimes and lovey-dovey's to like anxieties. And you're right. I keep telling myself this week, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? If it was that easy, everyone would just roll up in a food truck and reiterate and do the podcast and run here and there. And it's truly, man, I'm 35 years old and I've got kids and they put me through the ringer, but this is a young man's game. It is very much a young man's game. It takes every bit of me and you leaning on each other. I love the FaceTimes personally. I think it's just a nice, inviting way to feel. My love language is words of affirmation. So it's nice to have somebody come in and do that. But I tell you what, this week was not easy. You're right. I was stressed. We got cameras breaking. We got podcasts due every week. We're trying to get everything ready for the truck. Testing equipment. That's another thing that's on the list. Is just like, I got to go in this truck and hope everything fires up. It should. Shout out to Kerry Roberts Sr., who's let us graciously use his barn. Just two powerhouse chicken trucks right next to each other in a barn. You never would have thought. But yeah, I mean, I've got the anxiety of getting that up and just scaling a business is hard, man. It's really difficult.
Yeah, but I think the commissary, like I said, we'll move into that this week when we do that. We'll start, we got some stuff on order. We'll start doing some inventory, get that stuff set up in there, make sure the truck's running, fryers are working, everything's good. Got the health department coming, getting everything checked out, make sure we're to code, and then we'll be good and ready for the first event. So I'm excited to get back in the truck there with you and Rich and kind of see what the whole operation looks like live in the truck.
Yeah, we've got some inquiries too. Like, thankful for this pod too. We have inquiries. A lot of people want to come work here too. It's flattering. It's really weird. In the beginning, it's your nucleus. It's just like, hey, this is the truck and this is our identity, and you hope people gravitate toward it. You hope people think it's fun. You hope people think you're not a D-bag, I guess. You know what I mean? They probably do. To be fair, I'm up here doing macho mans and I got the hairsprays, asking your wife to borrow it and stuff. And we talked about last week, they thought we were lovers. So there's a lot going on this side of the map. But
a good friend of mine, Reggie Jackson, outfielder for the New York Yankees, said people don't boo nobodies.
That's true. And contrary, I actually live by a very similar code. It's if they're not cheering you or booing you, it's sort of like wrestlers. They say, if they're not cheering you or they're not booing you, then you're green as grass. You're just there. You know what I mean? So even a heel turn or a baby face, it's a part of what this adventure is all about. But it's been a fun adventure nonetheless. But we do have some other big news. We are open for business, right? The good, the bad, the anxieties, the FaceTime drunken love calls. But I will say we had a big win this week from the Moose. You want to tell us all about that and how that went down? We have our first official Two Dads podcast sponsor in the local area. Obviously, Good Liar being there is our beer of choice right now. But tell us about the Moose.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. So anybody in the area knows probably what the Salina Moose is. It's a heck of an organization that raises a ton of money and donates it all back to the local area. So they reached out to us and said that they wanted to sponsor the podcast and they want us to, kind of shout them out on the podcast. And they have some scripts that they'll send us and stuff like that. They hit us with this great sign up there.
Look at that. So if you can see behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, for those on Spotify, it's like what is that made? It's a metal.
It's a metal CNC lathe that just cut out a big moose with the lodge number and Salina Moose Lodge up on top. It's really cool. They said we want to throw that up there. So I said, hell yeah, I'll take down the Coors Light sign because we are a Good Liar beer sponsor anyways. So we'll throw the Salina Moose Lodge sign up there. We threw that up there, and this is the first episode as them as a sponsor. And, we didn't think that this time would come that quickly, but we really are glad that the local community has kind of heard the episodes, liked them, and see a platform for us to be able to, express ourselves for them as well.
I keep feeling like I say thank you every week. I feel like, but it's something that I feel so deeply passionate about. It's just like, this is a nucleus of our brain, man. I mean, there are people right now, they're sitting in a seat, just driving to work or driving home from work or just giving us the luxury of being in the comfort of their own home. And I can't believe it. And to get a sponsor this fast, thank you to local people that believe in us. We've had people inquire as well about, being additional sponsors. We're looking into it. I don't want to take on too much too fast, though. This is going to be an extreme greed kind of concept that if I want to do it right, I want to vet our sponsors, and I want to also give people that believed in us the right time. You'll see in this episode there's going to be a cut in, or if you haven't already heard it, there's going to be ad breaks now. And it's not going to be crazy. I'm not trying to bombard it. I don't want to be a 40-minute episode with 20 minutes of ads. But I will say it's a special thing to get to this sort of milestone on a podcast. It's an even more special thing to get to this milestone, episode 4. I mean, so cool. And thanks to Gabe, thanks to everybody there. Amazing stuff. Shout out to Brooke as well. Just amazing stuff at the Moose, and we really appreciate this sponsorship, and we're going to do you right.
Yeah, and the one thing I really like is, we went to Moose Stock last year.
Yeah, we did,
So
and that was awesome. The fact they even
the
brought
start.
us in.
So they let us into the Moose Stock. They raise all the money internally, so they take all the money and they pay it forward to a bunch of great foundations and places like that. So to let us come in and us get our cut of Moose Stock
Degenerates that we are.
was amazing. And I wasn't working with Mitch at that time, but I was there drinking, and those guys were going through it. You, Tosh, and Berkey were slinging some chicken back there, so it's cool to see it come full circle. We went there, we brought the truck there. Everybody at Moose Stock loved it. We sold out of chicken, and then they see us next year, and they say, hey, they want us back at Moose Stock, and additionally, hey, we want to help sponsor the podcast. We like what you guys are doing, and one thing, Gabe said is they want to focus on the good, and that's kind of what we talked about this whole time. Is they want to showcase where they're spending their money, kind of, and not in a bad way to kind of show it off, but to spread awareness. And, the cause that they just hit the other week was incredible, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But we like giving back. They like giving back. It's a perfect marriage.
It's a great North Star that both of us share. I mean,
Not the town, up the street.
Exactly. Up in the sky. Yeah. It's a great laurel that we like to sit on. I'll use the different word there. It's the same place that we're both trying to move to at the same time. And I actually heard it this weekend, and it's a weird story I didn't even plan to talk about out here, but someone said to me, sometimes you do land on your face. Sometimes you go out and try. Sometimes you fail. Sometimes you succeed, but you always have good intentions. And I think that is the thing that I'm looking for in sponsors. I'm looking for people that have good intentions, that want to do good, not to deceive, not to be cunning, but to be clever. We can have fun, and we can express to this world, we can express to this hyper-localized community that's kind of getting behind us, but I wouldn't want to send them a message that I don't believe in myself. It's sort of like, if I'm going to put my name on it, I want trust to be a part of Two Dads. I think Two Dads as a brand, I want you to think fun, I want you to think goofy, I think entertaining, obviously. But the last piece there, I want them to think we're truthful, because I think that's truly who we are. And I hope these authentic messages we send come across that way. We're really these guys behind the camera or behind the podcast mics to our guests that come in. I hope trust is a big way somebody describes our brand in 10, 20 years, the way you talk about Chick-fil-A's and everything like that.
Yeah, and I had my uncle who's not a tech guy at all. His wife had to get him to listen
Runs
to
in
the
the family.
podcast.
Runs
it really
in the family.
does.
You
Not
should see
tech
Bill.
family.
I don't mean to cut you off. You should see Bill try to set up these cameras beforehand. He tried to put a post on like at 5 a.m. this morning, forgot the link. Like, I love him to death. I love you, buddy. Not a tech guy, but go on. Sorry.
I own that, though. That's transparent.
That's
I
fair.
own
Does
that.
your uncle own that as well?
Yeah, we're all pretty transparent as
That's
Rays
fair.
are.
Okay, go ahead.
So he texted me this past weekend, had a pretty powerful message. And you know what he said? It was a lot of, mushy-gushy stuff being a family member. But at the end of it, he just said, keep being you. And that hit home with me because we really are transparent. We are honest. And we show the good and the bad, and we'll continue to do that. So just keep being you. Isn't that powerful a message? But it hit home with me coming from someone who was a big influence in my life after my dad passed.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, not to change it in any kind of way, but like, I'm so happy that I have my dad here too. It's not a rub into you. It's just like,
yeah, okay.
I'm so happy. Okay. Anyway, speaking of having a dad, sorry, Bill. But it's nice to have family in general support us. We got a lot of kind messages, and I try to post even on the Instagrams you look at. Like, I try to post feedback. I think that's the most valuable. If you're going to take the time out of your day, not only to listen to this, but then go above and beyond and send us a message. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm screenshotting them and put them on. It makes me want to run through a wall. Have you seen those on the Instagram stories?
I texted you this morning. I was at work, and by the time I got back through it, I saw the Instagram story. I'm like, who the hell sent those messages? That's awesome.
Yeah, you were inquiring pretty. I'm like, I got multiple. And I
Yeah.
tell you what, I got to give you credit where credit is due. The 5 a.m. starts, dude, all right, I had a long day yesterday. I'm just caveating real quick. I'm tired. Bill's talking about early in the podcast.
We're all tired.
Yeah, okay. This is what he says to me. That's so, sometimes it's inspiring. Sometimes I feel like I want to dunk my head in the toilet. But what he said was like, we got to get the 5 a.m. out. And I said, I don't even know if I had words. I said, and he's like, dude, this is what we do. We continue to stack wins, and you got to do it. And when it gets tough, it's a young man. We said everything we said at the beginning of the podcast, but
Keep stacking
wins. But I will say, putting it out at 5 a.m, I got more messages from our morning crew that said like, dude, and one of the messages we talked about on Instagram stories, my friend Keegan, he says, dude, this makes my workday pass by so fast. Like, what an enjoyable addition to my day, not a hard stop, and then it's not like getting in the way of their day. It's a nice compliment to what they do in their everyday workflow, and that to me is one of the most flattering.
Yeah, the guys that a couple of my buddies that were beating me up about it, saying like, I don't want to watch this at noon or 1 o'clock. Didn't get a text from them this morning. So if you're listening, thank you, Keegan, for giving some messages.
Yeah,
but the
Keegan.
guys that asked for 5 a.m. and didn't say thanks for moving to 5 a.m.,
Move it back to
yourself.
noon. Move it back to noon until they say thank you. We said we could pivot every week, and pivot we do. But I have something else very special. We talked about the Moose and shout out. We have our first guest here today, just arrived. We'll announce Joel here in just a second. Not quite yet. He's getting ready. I think he just pulled up. He's moving in. But he is someone special in our group. He's obviously been here since the very beginning, dating back to setting up this podcast equipment, giving us tech feedback, advice. He's been an amazing friend, but Joel is a professional 3D printer. And when you hear that, I'll explain him in the intro here in a second. He makes some of the most insane things I've ever seen. And you've seen some of the stuff. Even you, can you speak to, like, I introduced you to him. I said, this guy's special. He's a whiz kid at professional 3D printing. He's not printing small, mundane things. He's printing different stuff, like things you would never imagine.
So I was literally thinking, when you hear 3D printer, I'm thinking like Facebook Marketplace, where you get these janky little plastic.
You can hear him in the
plastic
background. Joel's showing up. We'll call it. He's rearing to go, but we'll call him here in a second.
little plastic pieces and stuff like that. And then he brings his first thing. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And then he did the Buckeyes trophy. I'm like, wow. And then he had this bluey thing that he built
Bluey thing, one of the most popular shows.
Yeah, it's like 2 foot
Dads
tall.
out there are the only show dads want to watch.
And I showed my son that, and he went off the damn walls for that and said, where can I get one? Is that from Walmart? I said, no, Joel did that. Can I have one of those? I said, well, we'll see if we'll put an order in with Joel first.
Yeah, when's your birthday, kid? So that's, without further ado, let's introduce our first guest, Joel.
Home, babe.
Wow. I didn't know Deadpool. Oh, he's brought props. This is incredible. For those watching on YouTube, you see what we're looking at. For those listening on Apple Music or Spotify, we've got some fun little, I don't even know, knickknacks, OG Pickle Avenue, Slick Willie Boulevard, and Deadpool mask to boot. Joel, how are you today?
Well, you know, if I can put some headphones on, I might be a little bit better.
Yeah, let's get him in here. Let's put
There
some
we
headphones
go.
on. Let's get your mic going. So I didn't give you. Do you mind if I give you a quick intro? Because people don't really know you that well, but we know you well. So I'm just gonna give you. I'll give you a quick hype, and then we'll get into some of the questions that we obviously have as our first guest. Congratulations! I know this.
I feel very privileged. I really do.
So for those that don't know, this is Joel Finn. He's the community manager for Polymaker, and they're one of the world's largest 3D printing material companies. Joel, you're the face and the voice of Polymaker to its community, handling everything from sponsorships and partnerships to event planning, management, and social media. You do it from home, but would you say that's a good background on who you are?
Yeah, it's a good start, a good way to introduce it. But yeah, it's a new venture, which I think we'll kind of get into talking about. But it's been fun. It's been about 8 months into it, and yeah, I mean, I get, of course, work from home, but it's also allowed me travel. I get to go to places I haven't been. I get to go to countries I haven't been to. So
For 3D printing.
For 3D printing.
So tell me about the start of that. You know, this is a good part to start in. Did you always want to be a 3D printer? Like, where does this come from? I mean, Bill, you're probably thinking the same thing. Like, how does one get into the 3D printing? I'm going to move your mic up just a little bit.
Yep.
Well, how does one get into the 3D printing business? Like, what were you doing before? How'd you get here? Like, just give us some of your background on who you are.
So real quick on the 3D printing part, just for people to understand, is there's a lot of different aspects to it. You know, a lot of people just do the vendor events and flea markets and sell little, you see little things on the desk if you're watching the video.
Knickknacks, right? Like,
yeah. And I do that. I dabble in that just for fun. It used to be more of a thing that supported the hobby. But getting into it, it was more of just a love for tech. And then about 7 to 8 years ago, finally getting a printer secondhand, super cheap. I'm a guy all about the deals. I got to go to my Facebook Marketplace, find the cheapest thing, and then lowball them on the cheapest price. But luckily, I had a friend got me into it. Started from there, and I tell everybody it started as a hobby. It really did, and then it became an obsession, and then just that led into, we'll kind of get to it here, is where I am today. It was never hey, let's make 3D printing a career, or anything that's going to sustain the whole household.
Right.
It was more of a hobby that's going to, ideally sustain itself. I can get new printers, I can get filament, etc., and I don't have to pay for it out of pocket. That's the best way to do
It's
it.
interesting. I did the similar thing. Like when I was like in Columbus, I did like I was trying to get free food, and that turned into Two Dads Food. Yeah, hot shit. That turned into that's very ironic. And Joel's followed that since the very inception. But I understand you made a big life change, right? So tell me where so you're doing this to a hobby.
Yep.
Okay, and it's just something to get free polymer or free something, right? And
filament.
and filaments. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying, right?
You call it Polycave.
Yeah, exactly. I just screw it up all the time. But how does it go from where you were? What pushed you to shift gears? Like, what challenges did you face internally that you wanted to go into this as like a full-time option?
So pretty much, I've been in retail management from high school. Out of high school, never went to college. Just went into debt, as I tell everybody, and then went into into the workforce. In retail management, started a dealership, managed some rent-to-own stores, and then went back to the dealership. It just became a thing of the atmosphere. I wasn't a fan of the place I was at and the atmosphere itself, and just I wasn't really looking for anything. If something came across, great, but I wasn't motivated enough to go look. So what happened with 3D printing stuff, I started getting involved with a 3D printing community. Polymaker is very community oriented. Volunteered for some stuff to help with them and some boosts, just printing some stuff out. And just since that they had that interaction with their community, got to know one of the main guys that had the NA team or the US team, and build a friendship from that. End up going to help at different events. I keep on moving. I told you I talk with my hands.
I like it.
But end up just helping them out with events and everything. And then that led to the beginning of last year, asking to be contracted to just help some with their Discord. Do a little fun Twitch show, and then it just led into more. And about June, I was asked, "Hey, would you ever be interested in working for Polymaker?" And it was an easy answer. The company definitely loved their mission and their involvement with community, and of course, my geek side. I get to do 3D printing stuff. I mean, of course, I'm not going to say no to that. But the opportunity was more than I could ever imagine, and it was an easy decision. I mean, where I was with retail management and just burnout. And where I was at the location.
Yeah, tell me about that a little bit more. What's the burnout? So like, I mean, you didn't obviously just wake up and like you're making it sound really nice and easy to just go.
Yeah, you can just change up careers.
Yeah, just change. But tell me about that. Like,
42.
yeah. So that's a good point. You were 42 years old and you looked at yourself and you said, "What? This burnout's real." Like, what was the final decision where you just made the jump? You got kids. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. 5 kids, happily married, and age 42, decide, hey, not are just not going to change a job, but we're going to change careers. Like I said, it was just more of some things internally that happened with the company that I worked for. And just, like I said, I wasn't happy with retail management. I always did well, not to toot my own horn, always did well with it, but there wasn't a passion. I went in and I did it and I took pride in my job. So it showed through on that. But, coming home, it wasn't like, oh, hey, yeah, I did this today. And I was, super happy where, I have fun stories from plenty of that stuff, but I've built so many memories in just a short time with Polymaker, just because now every day I go to work, I enjoy it. And as cliche as that sounds, that's what I encourage anybody to do is find what you love. And sometimes it's not easy. At 42, to change a job up and be like, well, yeah, let's hope this works out. I'm confident in my work ethic that it'll work, but it's a jump and it's scary.
We talked, not to cut you off, we talked about a little bit last week about making that leap of faith into your next position, right? Like that takes something. We said, you need to be financially stable and things like that. Probably a little easier because you were working for a company to make that leap of faith. But for me, that space this is the first I've really experienced any of it. The last few weeks when I just met you and stuff like that.
Yep.
What excites you the most about the future of 3D printing? Because to me, this, let's
show this to the cameras for those you can. I'm holding in my hand for those that are listeners and not doing this is a full like Deadpool mask. Like it's deconstructed and it's legit. I mean, it feels like vinyl. I mean, it's got the
textured.
I mean, I wish you could, for those at home.
And that's not painted. That's printed in that color plastic.
I mean, when you talk about 3D printing, the one thing I want to clear up before, because Bill, that's a great question, is like, where's this go? In the beginning, it was like a hobby. I think, even just in a cultural thing, it was 3D printing to me. I think why I love you as this first guest is like, I had misconceptions about this completely. I thought this was just a guy in the basement building run-of-the-mill little trinkets that could be handed out like, stocking stuffers. I'm holding things that are just absolutely unreal. I've got OG Pickle Boulevard with Bill here that looks like a street sign that's going to now live on the desk forever. We've got a Deadpool mask. Bill's got a homemade like a 2024 national championship from Ohio State. I mean, it is insane. So to go back to Bill's question, Where was this market, and where do you see it heading?
It's in just the time that I've been in it, it's been insane. I would have gotten it earlier than I did, but the cost, it was expensive to get into. And it was one of those things. I'm big, especially with tech. I suffer from FOMO worse than anybody that I know. You know, for those that don't know, fear of missing out. Like I got to adapt that, get that new technology, try it out and be the guinea pig for it. But 3D printing, I was afraid it was going to be a phase. So I wasn't going to put a lot of money into it. So I waited. And like I said, I got one secondhand from a friend for cheap. And that made it easier to jump into it. And then from there, it was like, okay, no, I'm hooked. And it was, of course, did some knickknacks with the kids. I've done tons of toys for them and everything else. But then just learning more of what you can do with it, the different materials, functional stuff. It's not just the fun, the masks and the desktop stuff. There's so much more with it. And really, to answer where do I see it going is in that 7 to 8 years I've been in it, it's transformed completely into high speed, high quality. There's printers now that the printer I started with, might take something 1 day to print, where now I can do it in 3 to 4 hours. So it makes it so much easier and more
so for
accessible.
For the viewers, and this is more for an operations question, if we're looking at this dragon and we are looking at this Deadpool mask, how long does this take you? And how long would this take you? And this takes apart. I know there's more to this, but just for an idea for the viewers, how long would something like this take you? And how long would something like this take you? And then what would the cost difference be? I mean, because that's obviously going to be way more expensive than what this probably would be.
Yeah, so the Dragon, it's all one piece, which is crazy, again, for those that can actually, are watching the video. It's articulating, it prints in piece, so you don't have to assemble it. It comes off the printer that way. You're looking probably, I think, 4 to 6 hours on something like that. And you can dumb down the quality, print it faster. You kind of find that medium.
Oh, it's sort of like exporting like files.
Yeah. Basically, you're taking a 3D model, you're putting through a program called.
You
a
brought
slicer.
these headphones. Are those 3D printed too?
Yeah. Yep.
Your
These are
headphones you're wearing right now.
fully
Okay,
3D printed.
dude.
Yep.
Okay, bro. Like, what is?
How do you get the
How do you
audio
even do
into
that?
the into?
So
not a
these
tech
are-
guy, not a tech guy.
So if you can see, so these are fully disassembled. So I could actually take these apart and replace the components in less than 10
What
minutes.
is happening right now?
Yeah, so everything's snapped together, fit together. The only things screwed in are the actual drivers. And then the company that I got them from, they have like 3 different tiers. Your normal, your classic sound, and your bass. So you can get, for vocal, you can get it for gaming or just bass.
For those that aren't watching, my mouth is in the floor. Like,
and these, I'll let you guys try these.
how long
later.
does that take? So that one. Let's talk to me about the
Okay,
dragon.
we'll say about 4 to
And then this
6
Deadpool
hours.
fully equipped, like Marvel quality movie mask has how much?
I would say less than 24 hours.
Okay,
and all
less-
the different pieces.
Less
and
than
everything.
24 hours on that. And then how much on the headphones?
Oh, those were probably 4 hours.
This
total.
doesn't even.
Yeah,
It's
so,
just
I mean,
that's
not
where
much.
the world is. Like it's just it makes me wonder. Part of this podcast is we're always trying to apply things back to our truck and not just knick-knacky stuff, but just we had an issue with the GoPro earlier, and it would be amazing just to run that through a printer and get a little thing. But to scale all the way up to this is actually insane.
Oh yeah, and that's where they're saying now that they've reduced the time. They used to say I think it was about 7 to 10 year prediction is now at about 5 to 7 years, where they say 3D printers are going to become more of a household appliance. That right now they're getting close to where that's pretty much what they call turnkey. You can unbox it, you can plug it in. It does all the leveling, calibrations all by itself, and then you just have to throw the file at it and say, "Hey, print me this."
That is
And
insane.
it's
I could
getting
see
more and
that
more
though.
closer to that.
So for I'm thinking of jumping. If you're jumping into this industry, well, you did it at 42. What would you? I mean, how would you quote that for a younger person? If there's a young person out of college, probably into tech and all this, sounds like it's going to be a booming industry.
Yep,
Very potentially, right?
absolutely.
What are you telling someone that's interested in getting into this? What's any advice you have? Anybody trying to jump into the 3D space?
I mean, if you're getting into it for the business aspect, the biggest thing with 3D printing is it's a hard service to sell because it really the sky's the limit. So you tell somebody, "Hey, I can 3D print you something," just like you guys. Well, what can you print? And can you print this, and then you start going down that list. Well, then you're talking for 12 hours of what you can print. The biggest thing is either creating something that's not out there. Or that's no longer available. Reverse engineer an old part to an appliance or whatever. Model that, print that, and sell it. Or the biggest thing is niche. Finding something that's either a meme online that's super popular. Of course, the trophy for the Buckeyes when they won. Capitalize on what's happening at the moment.
Sounds like an early
and trends.
entrepreneurial opportunity if you think about it. Like that's a
Absolutely.
very entrepreneurial opportunity. A very entrepreneurial opportunity. as we do this live. So it doesn't matter. I'm not cutting that out.
Welcome to Two Dads 3D Printing.
Yeah, exactly. But the possibilities are truly endless. That's fascinating. One of the other sides to your business, since you're a community manager, right? Like not just the knick-knacky stuff, but like you're a community manager. We're working to build a strong community around this truck. And we realize now more and more as like people get behind the podcast and all these things. My question to you is, can you talk about the importance of building community here? Like like you're a community manager. Community is everything, and especially as you become a niche product to now almost a global in your house brand, right? Like everyone's going to own a 3D printer. Like, can you talk to me about the importance of 3D printing, like of community of 3D printing, of community in general when it comes to an industry?
Oh yeah, and that's not to toot my the company I work for his own horn, but that's where they've excelled, and that was what made my job easy coming into it. Is the biggest thing is that the involvement with community, and then what I've seen you guys already having is the transparency. I think you talked a little bit about it earlier. Is that transparency is letting them know what's going on, being open with them. A lot of them like to know that operational stuff, some of the inside stuff, maybe something they might never deal with, they might not implement to their lives, but letting them know how things work. It's always interesting there, and then just keeping, not being fake, being genuine. That's how me and you hit it off. When we first met, it was just a genuine person. Our personality is like, hey, this guy's a good guy. He's not a BSer. He's not just hey, I want to tell you what you want to hear. It's just be upfront, be honest, but be engaging. And that's I've seen that. I've come to the truck many times to get chicken.
Yeah, you're an amazing supporter. I can't thank you enough for that. Obviously, that's a huge part of.
It's easy when you got good chicken.
Yeah, well, that's true as well. That's not a bad thing to say. It comes back to what we said before we started the podcast. It's about trust. I want people to trust it. I think part of community building comes down to trust. Would you say?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I mean, just example of what we dealt with recently. We had a new product that we released, and this was right before I actually came on officially. But it was a little bit of a bad launch. Not all the information was out there on this material. So people, you lose that trust, and that can hurt you right off the rip. But then getting back in front of it, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do something wrong. You're going to say something wrong. But being in front of it, owning it, and then learning from it. Showing that the people that are watching you, that are coming to your, either watching your podcast or listening to it, coming to this food truck, that you can fix those, and that hey, I messed up. This is a fix. And again, that's that transparency of just letting them know this is what we're doing to make things better.
Goes to your operational excellence.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I saw it last year on the truck when you handed me 2 very small chicken tenders. And then you said, you know what, that's not enough. I'm going to throw a third one in there because those are just too small.
Sure.
It was just, hey, you recognize that the order looked smaller. And then you say, hey, I'm going to throw a third one in there just on the house just because that's what you should do. I mean, you recognize what wasn't there and you fixed it. And, as a customer last year, I appreciated that.
Yeah, and it goes back to the same thing with content. It just goes same thing with the podcast. I don't know that we're coming in this to be perfect. I know that the cameras were 720 and now they're 1080. And I know that maybe we won't always get things right, and maybe it'll have to be reshuffled. And, we get feedback from the community all the time. Hey, we had someone request volunteering more and being out there. And I think that's great too. And it's just sort of like, you can only do so much so often, but as long as you keep the North Star of trust and just saying, like, look, and we talked about it, I have the right intentions. We have the right intentions here. It may not always be the execution, whether you have a broken 3D printer or, a community member that's disheveled or angry.
Yep.
Doing the right thing and having the good intentions is very rare, and I think that's a huge part of community building in general.
Oh, yeah, I mean, customer service that's what keeps them coming back, and that's what keeps them talking. The word of mouth traveling so far is community service. Just like he said, is you didn't have to throw in another tender. He might not even ever noticed. He might have just walked away at his chicken and never. And you don't know that, but you're still willing to.
But he did notice that it happened. So I like that.
I just gave that order to my wife and took her order with the bigger tender.
Here's the kids' meal. Yeah,
that's fair. I think about consistency, and with the time that we still have left with Joel here and time left in the podcast, one of the things I think about, and I wanted to do a fun segment if you guys are good with that. I like fast food. Bill, I mean, you're in a weight loss challenge right now. He might have had a former love with fast food. And Joel, you're a fast food person as well.
Oh, yeah. The black shirt's hiding it, but yeah, I'm a fast food guy. I'm a food guy in general.
Smart. I wear the black coat. Everything's good. But one of the things that you had said last week struck me. You said, like, I want to interview someone from Chick-fil-A. It might have been a couple episodes ago, but you said I want to, because of their consistency overall from shop to shop is just wonderful. And I think of the consistency that also goes into 3D printing. Like, you want a good, consistent, quality thing. So I say to you, Bill, trying to tap into the sports side of you,
All right.
let's do a fantasy draft real quick, okay? You know, it's going to be more fantasy baseball, fantasy football's over, but let's just do this. And this one's easy for Joel. I know you told me you weren't super into sports, but this one's easy, okay? We each get 2 picks in order. Bill, I'll start with you. We'll go Bill, Joel, me. Let's pick 2 businesses, one at a time, and then one at a time again. Give me your most consistent fast food. If you had one fast food to eat for the rest of your life that embodies consistency, just give us a quick answer and tell us why, and then we'll move on to the next. So your first round draft, Bill's on the clock, and he's got the first round pick. What amazing here, OG Pickle live here at the studio, 2 Dads. It's our first fast food draft. Here is Bill Ray on the clock. 2 seconds on the clock, 2 minutes. Here we go.
With the first selection of the top-notch fast food execution award,
Okay.
I'm going with Culver's.
Shout out to
That's a good
Culver's
one.
off the big board. Didn't see that one coming. Tell me about Culver's before we go to Joel. Give me Culver's. So people at home, what is it about Culver's that gives it to you?
I go there, and I used to work in Sydney. There's one in Sydney. I haven't had Culver's in probably half a year or so. But every week we would go there, and a buddy of mine, Rob, would go for lunch every Wednesday, and it never missed. It was hot. It was fresh. And everybody, when you walked in, is, hey, how are you? What can we do for you? There was a positive attitude. So I feel like when you walked in the store, they were positive. That puts me in a good mood.
Love
Makes
that.
me want to order the large cheese curds on top of the fries and the burger.
You want to get the addition.
and that's why I'm in a weight loss competition.
First, okay, first one off our big board as we keep it moving. Joel, you're on the board. Consistent restaurant across the board that you would eat often, consistently, happy with it, never really have a problem with. Where you at?
I won't go with the obvious one that I'd probably usually answer, but I'm going to say Hotheads.
Okay,
Hotheads has been good
a
for me.
fast casual restaurant instead of fast food. I still put it in the same. I still put it in the same category. Still fast food. I wouldn't say it's like a burger place, but I would say, okay, tell us why Hotheads.
Just every time that I go, it's actually, and it seems to be, I haven't been to a ton, let's say 5, but it's always inviting. They're always welcoming. They yell at you when you come in. Hey, welcome in. And I'm sure part of it comes that you're standing in front of them, so they got to get that order right.
Mm-hmm.
But I've personally at least have had positive interactions with the employees. They're always nice, polite, asking the right questions. They don't seem like they're fed up to be there and they want to go home. So I've had good luck with them.
Got a good luck over there at Hotheads. I mean, you guys left a lot of good ones on the board. I'm sure there are people screaming at home. McDonald's comes to mind.
That was the obvious one.
I've
for
got to
me,
say,
but-
an inspiration to our own 2 Dads brand, but I love them every time. It's not Chick-fil-A this time. I'm going to go Raising Cane's.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Cane's, the sauce slaps, whether I go at 2 a.m. and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, or I'm in, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just everything about Raising Cane's, their seasoning's always on point. Those fries are great. You can sub out to everything. You can have the same fun interactions. Hey, I don't want the slaw. Let's sub in an extra bun. There's just... It's got so much to give, and then there's delicious sauce, the Cane's sauce you can't miss, which has some inspiration to 2 Dads. I've got to give it to Cane's. So that's the third pick in the first round. We've got, so let's go with Culver's, and then we go Hothead, and then we go Raising Cane's. Okay, let's go second round, first pick, snake draft.
Yep.
It's got to go back
draft,
to.
so it goes back to you.
I'm gonna go McDonald's. I think you may not like the food. You may not into it, but every time I have to stop, whether it's a truck stop on the middle of nowhere or it is a high-end new one that they're trying to make into a mega complex, they're just turning into metropolises. Like I can't tell if it's an apartment or it's a McDonald's, but they're consistent. And as a brand trying to scale our second truck, one of the things that I'm often reminded of is just how hard it is to keep your food tasting the same from one place to the other. And I think they embody it. I'm not saying it's the best tasting ever, but, we're going to go. I have one trick up my sleeve after this for the third and final round. So I'm going to take McDonald's. Let's go over to you, Joel, for the second pick, second round.
Let's go in not so local, but let's go White Castle.
Okay. I have not had a similar White Castle experience to that. Sometimes it comes out.
I've had the same one at
looking-
3 a.m. every time. Though.
I've only
true.
really, I think, ever had. there was one somewhere when we were traveling.
So you've
but
had good
Marysville.
good experiences.
Marysville. Yeah, and I think too that probably that leads to that is just the quality. Like you said, it's not the best tasting burger, but then there's not a ton of flavor.
But you know
so
what
it's
you're
probably
getting
not
into every
bad, but
time.
Yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
trick.
Yeah, it's you get what you expect.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I look, no judgment-free zone here. Okay. Didn't see White Castle coming.
Yeah.
There's probably someone chuckling at home. I love it. I think that's a curveball we love on a podcast. Bill, to close out the second round in the final pick, the Mr. Irrelevant Award, so to speak.
On a diet, you can do it with a bun if you're off a diet. If you're on a diet, you can do a lettuce wrap. with an unwich.
Jimmy John's?
Give me Jimmy John's.
Wow. Hey,
Caters
let's
to
give it up to
everybody.
the man. I thought for a second you said with the only place I get with a lettuce wrap, unless I'm at some kind of like Chinese restaurant or something, right,
Yep.
is a Jimmy John. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, give me the JJ Gargantuan.
Give me the what's the Turkey Tom's pretty good. I like
Turkey
the
Tom's,
Italian. What's the
Billy
late
Billy
night
Club or something
late
like
night
that.
Italian or something like
Yeah.
that. I haven't gone there. I haven't memorized the thing quite, so to speak. But okay, let's do one more round before we depart from our friend Joel, who's graciously come in. Thank you so much.
for
Let's
having
do
me.
the opposite. Let's
Okay.
go to brands that have fallen off a cliff. You started the other round. I think it goes back to me then. Would you say that's fair? Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm going to say brand that fell off a cliff is not consistent and not where I'd like to see them be, and that's Burger King.
Okay, brand.
Ooh,
Fast food still.
Fast
not
food,
brand.
fast food.
Okay,
sorry.
You're good.
Fast food brand. I was good. I'm gonna go Burger King. I think when I was growing up, there was I was like, dude, that competes with McDonald's. Those Chris sandwiches slap. The little tater tots slap. The burgers are good. I mean, I wouldn't go for the chicken as much, but the flame grilled burgers and stuff. Now it's a ghost town. It just looks scary in every city I go to. It just looks like it's calling you, like reaching out like some ghoul, just like, come back, Mitch. Come back to Burger King. And I can't do it. It used to be meme lord. Now it's meme nothingness. So I'm going to say Burger King. How about you?
I'm going to have to go, unfortunately, with Wendy's.
Oh,
Especially locally.
That's exactly what I was going to
Locally,
say.
I mean,
Look like
it's
you
just-
took Bills.
I don't know. Maybe it's just our area, but all the surrounding, like I've got 3 to 4 Wendy's.
Don't go to the one in Salina. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to crush.
yeah.
I don't want to
No.
crush Salinas, but it is. People come into town. They go, "Yeah, I went to Wendy's." I'm like, "Did you
Don't.
look under the burger?" Like, there's. Sorry if there's any Wendy's workers there, but they're probably being honest with themselves, going, "Yeah, I don't even eat
Yeah,
there."
we know. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
we know.
But yeah, no, like, even the 4 that are in about a 20-minute vicinity of me, just it's.
They slap on social media, but I will say it
Yes,
falls flat when it goes
I
into
love
the actual
their
physical
X
location.
social. Yep.
Socials is very good on X. You're right. And Bill, to close out the final bit.
I had one in the chamber ready to roll, and that was
Oh, he
Wendy's.
took Wendy's
Yeah,
from
He
you.
took
Okay,
Wendy's.
all right. Honorable mention for me is Subway.
I'll take the honorable mention, but I'm gonna go with Captain D's.
Okay,
dude,
you're
No,
right.
I'm dead serious.
Dude, I used to love a hush puppy. I slapped the hush
I
puppies.
love good hush puppies. I love good fish. I love good food, and I love you, Captain D's. I used to love you when I was 7.
Yeah, sure.
You suck.
Yeah,
long,
I'd
long
probably
time
go.
ago.
Would you go? Let me ask you this, Joel. You're our special guest. Would you go gas station seafood or Captain D's? Where are we sitting? Like a sushi roll from a gas station, or
See, I'm
would you
not
go?
a seafood guy, so I'd skip both. But
You got to pick one. You're gonna be sick
you
either
know
way.
what? I'm gonna go Captain D's.
Yeah,
only
safe.
because
Fried.
they also a lot of times are conjoined with A&W.
Oh, you're right. They
So,
have
you
a
know,
little A&W.
so, yeah,
Shout out.
yeah.
Shout out.
Little saving point.
I was gonna say I will take a Kroger sushi roll over Captain D's.
Easily though. That's not
Without
even
a shadow of a
comparable.
doubt.
Not even comparable. But you know what's not to compare? How good it was to have you here this week. We really appreciate you, Joel. Thanks for coming on the
Hey,
podcast.
thank you guys.
You guys have been amazing. The support, the last 4 episodes have been phenomenal. We have our first guest in the books. Next week, we have a little bit of slight changes. I don't think we'll have a guest because I've got some travel plans. You've got some travel plans as we kind of gear up for the season coming in. So we'll be back, just me and you in the hot seat next week. But Joel, we can't thank you enough, man.
Thank you.
Bill, anything else to say before we get out of here?
No, thanks, Joel, again. Thanks, listeners. And March Madness is upon us, baby.
Oh, yeah. Look for the descriptions or the Instagram. We'll let you guys know. We want you to join our March Madness bracket. A bit of an afterthought, but stick to socials. We'll give you some information coming soon. Take care.
It's good. Did you create this music yourself?
He's a mix
The auto
artist.
tune.
Yeah.
It's the Omnicord. It was the Rock 1 preset.
Perfect. It works.